Hey, this is Corey. Before we start today's podcast, I want to ask you a quick question. Is your life as fulfilling as you thought it would be? I don't know what area of your life that you feel you're falling short. I know I have different areas of my life at different times. Maybe you want to reignite the passion with your spouse. Maybe you want to be able to walk into a room with confidence. Maybe you're trying to achieve some different health goals or trying to be more patient with your kids. I don't know what it is, but what I do know is from coaching one-on-one executives for the last few years, I find myself repeating the same thing over and over. And the reason being is because we are not alone. We're all battling some of these same situations. So my encouragement to you is join this challenge that I'm launching here in a few weeks, where I'm taking a lot of this content that I use with leaders and putting in videos as well as group calls that we can grow through this together. The challenge is called the Confident, Consistent Leader. It will be a challenge over a 30-day period to help you grow. Head over to my website at CoreyMCarlson.com/leadership to learn more. On to today's episode. Thank you.
Welcome to the Win at Home First podcast. I'm your host, Corey Carlson. This podcast is where we talk about how successful business leaders win, not only at work, but also at home. On this podcast, we'll go behind the scenes with great leaders to hear stories of how they win. Thank you for listening, and on to today's episode.
Hey, this is Corey. Today's episode, JR, is filled with good information from how he wins the day by starting his morning routine that I think will be helpful to you, how he has became very intentional listening to his employees. We also dive into race. JR is black, I obviously am white, but we talk about some race and he's got some great tips for us to lead with openness. It's an awesome discussion. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And on to today's episode. Hello, this is Corey. Listen to Win at Home First podcast. Today I'm joined by JR Foster, who is married, has 3 young boys, as well as leading 2 different companies, and they are just seeing fantastic growth. And so I was excited to sit down with JR today just to learn from him. Like, how are you doing this? It's in commercial real estate, which has its challenges, but yet he's still finding growth. So he's doing something right, as well as winning at home and a strong man in his faith. So JR, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, Corey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to share.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. What is that key trait that leaders need to have in order to win at work and win at home?
Wow, that key trait for me has been perseverance. That has been my key trait, never giving up, even when the battle gets tough. You have ups and downs and challenges, not only in business, but in your personal and professional life. So I think it's that perseverance, making sure you stay steady the course.
So what does perseverance look like for you at home?
For us, it's just being able to persevere for Rhonda and I, and Rhonda's my wife, really just making sure that we stay true to who we are as parents, but also as individuals, but also as a couple, right? You get very caught up in the day-to-day of just doing life. And for us, the way we persevere through that is we have a date night every Thursday, right? So we make sure we're intentional about, giving back to, why we became a couple. It's not always, the best and the rosiest as no relationship is or no situation is, but we make sure that we stay true to our core values as a family, core values as a couple, and we just persevere through, all the good times and low times.
You said some good stuff there. I want to dive in a bunch of it, but I'm going to try to piece it one at a time here. Date night on every Thursday night. I absolutely love that. One of the first things I do when I start talking to clients about their marriage is not going great. And it's like, when the last time you went on a date with your spouse? It's like, let me think. They don't know. But you guys are every Thursday night going on a date.
We haven't missed it, even through COVID. We braved COVID and went out. Yeah, every Thursday. We have a standing babysitter every Thursday. She comes over at 6:30. We leave the house by 7:30.
I love it. Well, JR, I got it. The naysayers that are listening to all this, but it costs a lot of money. What about the money you're spending on babysitting, going out to eat?
You know what? You have to make an investment. You know about this. I mean, just with your coaching practice and you're pouring into guys, you have to spend the money to invest where it's most important to you. And what's most important to us is each other and our family. And it doesn't have to be expensive, right? You don't have to go to Jeff Ruby's every Thursday. You can do something very simple in the summer. We'll do a picnic, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be something where you're spending money that's, abnormally outside of what you would spend on a normal Thursday.
Oh man, that's great. What about the idea that it takes time and you got to work late, and don't you have to work late on Thursday nights? How does that work in your life? Because I mean, you're the owner of a company that, as we talked about, is growing like crazy. Isn't there always time to work? I mean, can't you just do a date once a month, JR?
That's a great question, man. I mean, that's back to prioritization, right? You have to prioritize it. So on Thursday, instead of, waking up at my normal 6 o'clock time, I wake up at 5, get my workout in, we just prioritize around what's important to us. And for us, why are we working hard? We're working hard so we can have a great life, so we can have, great family time. And so you have to sacrifice some things, and work's not the most important thing to us. The most important thing is each other and our family.
That's good stuff. And then you made a comment, you even shift your Thursday because you got date night. So it's like, I've got to wake up a little earlier to make sure I get my workout in. And so you're shifting the day and you're being intentional from 5 a.m. on those Thursdays.
I am. And I'm being very intentional about it. I'm a very intentional person to begin with, but for that day in particular, we know it's coming. We know it's every Thursday. So we build the schedule around kind of that time together. It's a rough Friday morning when I have my workout with my workout partner, Rico, but it's worth it.
That's right. He can tell if you've been to Jeff Ruby's or you did a picnic. If you're light on your feet, he's like, if you're light on your feet, you're like, you had a picnic last night. You're a little slow. Right. And
exactly.
Like, you had a big old steak. Oh, that's awesome. That's good. That's good. You mentioned family values. Was that just kind of a generic blanket statement, or do you guys, in fact, have you sat down and done a vision statement and values for your family?
So we have done that. We have done the full-on vision statement, values. Now, what we haven't done is we haven't revisited that since our last son, probably since our last two sons. So, things change. And so I think one of the things we try to do is get something together on a quarterly. We usually go to coffee shop on a Saturday and just talk about kind of how we're leading our family, where we want to lead them. We're in that stage now where we're thinking about things like education. So those things are important to us. But we do have a vision statement and core values for the family. I think it needs to be revamped, but it definitely is the North Star to kind of our family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when it's in place to recalibrate towards it as opposed to recalibrating to nothing. I mean,
right,
if we're just kind of going, blindly, then, bad things can happen. We can get distracted.
Exactly.
Does Rhonda work?
She does. She's HR business partner for Jewish Hospital. So
you both are busy, demanding jobs, and yet have 3 young kids and still find a way to make priority for date night, run the family like a business where you have vision and values.
Yeah.
And that's
the only way to get it done. I think it's the only way for us to get it done. We are, as you know, just with kids, we're going a mile a minute. And so, for that, we have to be very, very intentional about our schedule and our timing. But we also always prioritize the family around anything.
Mm-hmm. With the 3 young boys, and they're young, they're 4, 2, and 1. So it's hard to get dates with them. But are you starting to, even with your oldest, looking to get those one-on-one times?
I do personally. So one of the things that I do every night is I read to them and then I read the Bible to them. So we're in Psalms right now, reading that. So trying to explain to them certain verses or whatever. But what I also do is I pull them out of daycare where they're in now once a month, each of them. And so we spend a half day together. It's an amazing time. And the questions that I get and the time that they're away from their brothers and it's just dad time. It's really special to me. So I just started that during COVID. So I'm going to continue to do that probably for a lifetime with them.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
The people that are listening, I'm one of them at times because my kids are older than yours, but they can roll their eyes when I start talking scripture. They can get bored. They can, How do you handle yourself at night when you're reading them the Bible and they're kind of losing their cool and they're getting bored? What's been your kind of strategy?
That happened last night.
That's right.
My 2-year-old's, running to his bed, doing backflips. And I'm like, Marshall, come on over here. You know what? I know that they're young. So I'm patient in the fact that hopefully it's getting through to them through osmosis, right? I'm not pressuring them to listen to the Bible and listen to the different verses. I am really just trying to get them into a routine of knowing that it's important for our family to have, Jesus a part of their life. And so for me, I take it as a grain of salt. If they want to, play with their toy while I'm reading, it just happens to be so.
So basically, before you start quiet time with them, you're praying, God, give me grace.
Exactly.
Give me grace so I don't lose my cool during Bible time.
Right. Well, right now we always start out with a book that they enjoy. Like, so we're reading some superhero books. We just read about how Tony Stark from Iron Man got his start, right? And so they're dialed into that. And then we read about 15 minutes of that, and then we're on to the Bible. And so I've learned that I've got about 2 or 3 verses, and their extended span is gone. So, yeah.
I just love that idea and going on God's promise that God's word never comes back void. So,
exactly.
So to your point, they may not know everything going on, but they're watching you. They're seeing you lead. They're seeing that you're dependent on Jesus, as opposed to, even though you're a successful businessman and a successful man, they will see that, hey, you're still dependent. You still submit. You still have to get down on your hands and knees and pray at times.
Exactly.
Whereas thinking you're just this lone wolf and you can pull up your own bootstraps.
Yep. 100%.
That's good. What does your quiet time look like for you individually? I mean, in the commercial real estate space, which we can talk more about that, but obviously that's taken somewhat of a hit. And during COVID, obviously everyone kind of thinks it's going to take even more of a hit post-COVID and people doing Zoom and things like that. How do you go about your day from a mindset standpoint, spending time in the Word, as well as just those days that are rough and hard?
You know what? I really recalibrated just my day during COVID. I think COVID for me was an awakening. It was a time to really reflect on what was important to me. And I think I came out of it, and still going through it. We are, obviously, but I came out of it as a better person, man, and just all around better. And the reason why I say that, to answer your question directly, I became more intentional around what are the important things in my life, and then how do I make sure that I prioritize those. And one of the things that came out of that was I needed to really figure out what my morning was. Like, if you hit your morning right, in my opinion, your day is set up correctly. And so I have a vision thing that I go through every morning. I review my goals. I do meditation. I do my affirmations. I pray every morning, and I do that before anyone gets up in the house, right? So it's my quiet time, and it's early. It's 5 to 6:30, and I just really kind of get through the day. I take my dog for a walk, listen to some podcasts. So that hour to hour and a half is my time, and my time to really reflect on the family, me personally, and my business. And I do it religiously every morning.
Mm-hmm. I started a morning routine probably about a year ago as well, and an identity prayer that I believe God's calling out to affirm in me and things that are kind of my weaknesses, whether it's provision or whatever it could be, and hitting those pieces. I also do I am statements, those affirmations. I mean, that's been a game changer.
It is.
How long have you been doing that?
I also wrote kind of a 10-year vision of as if I was living that vision at the time. And it's only a paragraph, but it talks about where I'm sitting, I'm sitting in Barbados at a house on the beach, and my sister and brother-in-law just got in town and spending the weekend with us. I mean, that's what it reads when I'm reading it, because that's where I want to be in 10 years. So.
Yeah. So really visualizing where you want to be. And I've been reading a lot of different mindset books that just talk about that whole visualization.
Yeah.
How critical that is. So in Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, there's this part towards the end where him and Phil Jackson go to hug and Phil Jackson says something like, I can't believe we do it. I did this. And Michael Jordan's like, I did because I saw it. And it's one of those deals where it's like visualization was so important to him, as it is with a lot of different mindset individuals, that that's something I'm working on. And I've seen a lot of breakthrough in it, but it sounds like you are participating in that as well yourself.
I love it. I love it. It feels like, for the people that, like you said, might roll their eyes and might feel a little hokey, I'll tell you, things that I've visualized or put into existence or speak into existence, it has been coming back to me. It really has been.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you are enjoying it so far. Before we go back to the rest of this episode, I want to share with you my book, Win at Home First. Some of you have read it, so thank you very much. For others of you, you have not. And I encourage, if you're looking for a resource to help you with these times of your work is now in your home and your home is now in your work, and what this looks like, this book is being helpful to many leaders like you. Forbes magazine said it was one of 7 books everyone on your team should read. And the book is broken up into 4 different sections to help you. First is about you, understand who you are. The second is marriage and ideas and tips to help with your marriage. Third is parenting. And then last is work. So these 4 different sections to help you recalibrate during this time and to help move forward. So if you are needing additional resources, I encourage you to check out my book, Win at Home First. It is available on Amazon as well as Audible. And so on to the rest of the episode. Thank you very much. JR, a big part of my story is, where I felt God just saying, hey, you need to hand over your small story, Corey, for a greater story, something bigger than myself. And it's been a big part of my life, big part of kind of turning my mess, poor choices I made, into my message. What about for you? What's that look like in your life, JR? Was there that time where you felt you just had to hand over your small story for something greater?
Yeah, I mean, in a similar mindset, I think, guys go through that maturing stage, however old you are. And I felt as though I was more living that bachelor life for a long time. I didn't get married until I didn't have my first kid until I was 37, and didn't get married until, 39. But I felt that, I was on a path of really just not having a true direction other than kind of the work was my life. And outside of that, it was, just having fun on the weekends, right? And, partying and dating, but not really having a true direction. And I feel that, meeting Rhonda and going through, the dating process with her, and realizing that, I've got to get serious about this, or I'm going to lose a special person in my life. I'm going to lose the opportunity to really become the man that I think I'm becoming today by not being serious in a relationship, right? Or not committing. Like many guys do not like to commit. I was leading that same vein. And, when I turned on that switch of this is just me and her, and this is the path that I want to take, life for me just took an amazing upward swing for the positive. Mm-hmm. I just felt more settled base, more solid base. I was working for a purpose. I was living for a purpose. I was loving for a purpose. And so for me, that really, and I know there's a quote in Game of Thrones, which is one of my favorite series. It says, "Kill the boy and let the man be born." And so I really felt like, when I kind of left the foolishness of dating a lot and dating a bunch of different women, it was really intentional to be focused on, becoming the best man I could be. And to me, that was also proving that I could be a committed partner.
Mm-hmm. And so I assume every aspect of your life changed that way. Like even, how you led your work team, how you led your own self. Oh, yeah. Is that true? I mean, did you just see a difference in all areas of your life?
I did. I 100% did. Another addition to that is I also became more intentional about, my faith journey as well. And so it kind of all came together. So yes, the work-life balance became even more of an easy road, to be honest with you, because I was really focused on being a better person, which made me, obviously, it translated into me being a better leader. a better lover and, just a better person, even to my friends and family, because I really felt like I had purpose at that time. And I don't know if that sounds odd, but that's what it was.
No, do you have a personal vision statement for yourself?
I do. And a part of that morning routine, that vision statement's in there that I read. So it's the whole thing is about 14 pages that I read every morning. And a lot of it's bullet points, but some of it's a vision statement.
Yeah, I think you and I got a very similar Google Doc. Although I don't have Barbados in mind. So before you met Rhonda, before you kind of had this, you still were a Christian. You still had faith. It's just you weren't necessarily practicing every day.
That's exactly right. It was a nice to have. I was going to Crossroads every other month, right? It was when I woke up from partying or whatever. But I still was a man of faith, and I was still trying to be the best Christian that I could be. But when you really focus on it, you're really doing something.
And just hearing you talk earlier, it sounded like before that pivotal moment, it was more about dependent on yourself, and God was there at convenience. Where now it sounds like it shifted, where it's a dependence on God.
Yeah, everything is dependent, I think, on it. I think it's intentional, but it's also important in my life, knowing that it's being led by God and by faith.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Talking about your business a little bit, commercial real estate. We talked about it. It's definitely has some interesting stories in the news, and everyone's zooming, and capacity is way over there. How are you leading your team, and how are you kind of thinking about the future of commercial real estate?
So we took a pretty big hit in one division of our company. So we have 3 divisions: capital, facility maintenance, and then brokerage. In the facility maintenance, we had over 500 restaurants that we were doing business for. And then overnight, restaurants shut down, right? So we lost 80% of that revenue literally overnight.
Wow.
So, we had to recalibrate and rethink about, no one knew that COVID was going to wipe out multiple industries, but also just kind of maybe one sector that we were focused on. So we really just started to think about, we got our team together and, over a lot of Zoom calls, and we just started really pouring into each other and pouring into the business and seeing where we're going to be the pitfalls going forward, but also where could we also drive more value back to our clients. And as we started kind of getting through those brainstorming sessions, so much came out of that. And as a leader, I kind of stepped back and just listened versus trying to lead and push the agenda and push the strategy. For me, it was a really enlightening period. And that's why I said I came out of COVID much better, because I really just let the team kind of say, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we're hearing. And these are the areas that we need to invest time, energy, and capital into our business. And it's proven to be great. We are really doing well right now. And I really throw that back to the team and them taking the lead and me as a leader just listening.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying your employees actually have some good ideas, huh?
They actually did.
So many leaders think, especially founders, right? I mean, that's what you're dealing with. You're a founder. I mean, you obviously have a co-founder, but there's that founder's mentality of almost like, hey, it's my idea or the highway, but instead being that leader that listens, that has kind of an open form of, let's all brainstorm the idea and then let the best idea rise to the top. Not my idea rise to the top, but the best idea. We kind of talked about your mid-30s change and what it looked like in your spiritual life, your dating life, all those things. Did you notice that in your leadership life too, where you started leading differently and you're kind of more open to listen, more open to serving your employees? Did you see a change there as well?
Super change, and also during COVID, I read more. Right. So I was reading a ton with all the downtime. So that also helped me. I was getting ideas from those that have been there. And I was kind of coming back with those leadership skills back to my team and really shutting down my usual aggressive nature in a board meeting and just saying, hey guys, what are you saying? So yes, I saw it in myself and I continue to see it. And prior to that, Dave and I had never thought of an idea that wasn't great. And now we're like, wow, our team has much larger voice today than we do. And it's great. And it's also allowing us to step out of the business and let other people lead.
I've not known you a long time, but it sure sounds like there's a big change in your life just around humility.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a confident person, and and I still have to at times pull myself back because you said it right. I mean, my brother-in-law said it, even in relationships. He's like, you got to swallow your pride, right? You got to be humble. You're not going to win every battle. And I think that's something that I'm still working on.
Yeah. But I mean, just hearing some of the stories, it really sounds like a big shift. So it sounds like progress have been made, but like you said, we got to still work on it.
Oh yeah.
And me too. It's the blessing and the curse of a lot of confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
and going after it. You do really good with one-on-ones with your wife, with your kids. I assume you've got the same rhythm with employees and making sure you're having that face-to-face time with them.
Yeah, so I'm getting better at that. So Dave and I kind of lead. He does more of the operations, and I'm more strategy and vision. And so he's interacting with our employees more than I am. But I also found out during COVID, I'm kind of being asked to have more involvement on the one-on-one conversations, right? So one, I was excited to hear that, but also two, realized that I had probably been missing the buck there for a while.
Yeah, maybe you're out hiding.
What
is he doing?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where my door closed a lot, right? I'm the guy that's with the earpiece in. I'm loud in my room, pacing and talking. And so it was kind of, I think the feedback that was received is maybe I didn't think folks were valued as much as I thought they were in my heart and my head. I just wasn't verbalizing that to my team. So that's what came out of it. And I love one-on-one stuff. And so it's been a good change of scenery and events for me to be more in front of our folks on a one-on-one basis.
What does faith look like at your company? Do you guys talk about it all? Do you lead with it, or is it just not discussed?
So we don't really discuss it. I mean, it's we're not intentional about hiring anyone that has to come from a faith background, but folks are pouring into different community things and we're community-based business more than a faith-based business. We allow folks to be who they are and express who they are. But we really, if you look at our website and things like that, we're really going after folks that have a community-minded focus to them and are giving back from a philanthropy standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And they just kind of get to choose the philanthropy, the kind of nonprofit or whatever that they're a part of, and you guys support it, or do you guys kind of pool the resources together and say, hey, we want to focus on this community, we want to focus over here?
So we have some company initiatives and organizations that we support, Habitat for Humanity, Changing Gears. You're familiar with them.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Changing Gears. That's cool. You're a part of it as well.
Yeah. So really pour into those organizations as a company, but then everyone else within their own individual likeness will definitely donate or donate time or energy into their causes as well. But we have some core things and core organizations that we support. We don't make our employees join those core supports, but we ask them to join if they have a likeness to it.
Oh man, that's neat.
Yeah,
that's neat. What are you hearing from God right now, JR? In your quiet time, reading Psalms with your boys. What are things that you're hearing in your quiet time?
You know what? I'm hearing that I need to step up more as a coach, as a leader, as we go through some tough times, as the country goes through some tough times with racial disparities and things like that. Stepping up and trying to lead from a godly perspective, but also making sure that I'm a voice in the community that's listening to guys like myself that might be hurting, that aren't expressing it. As guys, we don't really express our emotions, but I know there's a lot of gentlemen that look like me that maybe in a state of distress, and maybe that outlet isn't right for their wife or their significant other. And so being that kind of sounding board to folks that might be having some stress in their life because they're worried about family and racial issues.
Yeah. And for those listening, I'm white and JR is black. Yeah. And so it is for those who can't obviously see our Zoom, but no. And so it definitely has been a trying year for sure. And I'm sure I had to dig down deep many times throughout this.
Yeah. And so it's, I've had a lot of talks with guys that run companies that are in my age range. And I feel like, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay to, not know. Right. And so I come from a great family. I got a great dad, and he and I are super best friends. And so I'm able to talk to him about anything. And some of my peers don't have that outlet.
Oh, that's cool to hear. You got a great dad and had that. I'm grateful I had a great dad as well. So, JR, not that, I didn't know if we, talk about this or not, but just on this topic, obviously we don't have enough time to cover all of the things, all the thoughts, all your recommendations, everything that you have. But, predominant listeners are going to be on my, podcast are white.
Of course.
Is there anything that you would say to us as leaders, or maybe you say it a lot to the people out in the community, and now's the time to kind of say something to help us lead during these times that are challenging? We're all I know I've listened to more podcasts about race than I ever have. I've read some books. I've had some conversations like this that are deep and they're hard. Had Chuck Mingo on the podcast months ago. That was cool. So just I know a lot of people are trying, but what would you give us some, I guess, words of kind of direction or on this?
Yeah. It's tough because I think race is always going to be racial issues, race, inner conflict in yourself. There's always going to be that, right? And so, what I've been telling a lot of folks and folks that don't, folks are on the other side of the aisle, folks that don't look like me. I mean, I went to Cincinnati Country Day. I went to predominantly white schools, and, I got a great education and a great understanding of both sides of the coin. And, for me, what I just tell people is lead with openness, lead with, openness. And I think a lot of what the faults have been, black, white, green, or yellow, whatever shade you come from, is, we're often taught certain practices, right? We're often not given the ability to understand someone on their own ground without having some sort of predetermined notion of who they are and what they do and where they come from, and if they're a good person or a bad person. So I always tell leaders, especially my white friends that are leaders, that ask me these questions is, don't be afraid to ask questions. Come at it from a real wanting to know and wanting to learn. And I say that to my friends that are black, that are leaders, that may not have had exposure to a lot of white folks and white people. And so I think it's a thing that we need to have more intentional conversations around what's important to us as people. And I think what we'll find and what I find is everyone's very similar. I think a lot of people are similar. I think a lot of people just are taught a different way. And just because of the historical nature of our society, and you can dig back very, very deep and see all the deep scars and everything that's happened in society. But I think if we're able to have real live conversations and get intentional about trying to figure out our differences, I think those differences will really feel like similarities.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. We have more similarities than we do differences.
Exactly.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, the difference we're talking about right now is just race. It's one thing, but the similarities are marriage is hard. We better go on dates. We better figure out how to be intentional with our kids. Hey, how can I be more humble at work? How can I listen to my employees more? All these similarities of what we have, we do spend so much time just focusing on one at, this race piece. So I love hearing you say all those things, JR. And I think, really before, I'd say these last couple of years, I felt more in the quiet camp, if you will. I, didn't view myself as racist, but I wasn't necessarily a big voice about anything, and
yep.
And I know a lot of different people have kind of fallen in that, but now it's just, all right, now we're just going to talk a lot about more. I mean, I know my family, we've talked more about race this last year with our kids, and they go to Walnut Hill. So I love it because they get diversity in every way. And yeah, it's a lot of good stuff. I'm optimistic.
Exactly. And I think it might be challenging times, but I also feel like a lot of positive things that are being raised, and hopefully we're treating them as things that can turn out to be super positives.
Yep. Well, it's awesome to have, someone like you, strong in your faith, strong in home, strong in that, to be a voice, which is exciting. So you say you feel that calling from God, man. I just encourage and affirm you to go do that. Go be that voice and to help us, the rest of us trying to figure this out. So that's pretty cool. And it's a big challenge. I get it. But,
it is.
That's cool.
Yep.
What are you most excited about here in these next 30 days?
I'm excited about this vacation I'm getting ready to take with my wife. We go down to Siesta Key, Sarasota a couple times a year, and we haven't been able to do that since COVID. So it's just his and her trip. And so I'm super excited about that. Excited about the summer just to get started, man. People getting outside and, just getting together for barbecues and whatever it might be. I'm excited to see my family more this summer. And so, really just more around just getting together with friends and family. I think we need it. We need hugs. We need,
we need hugs, man.
So, and then we're busy right now in the business. So the next 30, 60 days is busy time for us. And so that's, we got some important meetings coming up that I hope we'll nail and, make it a good second and third quarter.
Oh man, that's great. Jared, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, man, I'm super easy to get a hold of. You can always shoot me a text, 513-284-9128, or just my email, which is jr.foster@robertlewiscapital.com. And Lewis is Louis.
Oh man, it's good stuff. Well, Thanks so much for being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with the Win Home First audience.
That's great, man. This is awesome. Great platform. Thanks for having me, and look forward to hearing some more of your folks come online.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right, man. Thank you.
I want to thank you for listening to my podcast, Win at Home First. I am so grateful to hear from listeners like you that this content has been helpful. So now I would love for you to pay it forward. I want to get this message in the hands of more listeners. We need leaders to be winning both at home and at work, especially during this time. So please take a minute to share this episode with somebody you think would find value in it, as well as rate and subscribe. As a thank you, please visit my website at corymcarlson.com to download a free resource that people are finding value in. Thank you very much.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.